And welcome everyone to Wizards Outlook. Washington Wizards fell to the Atlanta Hawks this evening, 131 to 116. We saw them have a horrible first half, bounce back in the third quarter, and just didn't have enough to finish in the fourth. So credit to Atlanta for that. Jalen Johnson led the Hawks tonight. He recorded back-to-back triple doubles. In pregame, I told you about the franchise history he had last night, becoming the first player in Atlanta Hawks history to have a 15-15-15 game. Well, he didn't quite have that tonight, but tonight's triple-double was 30 points, 12 rebounds, and 12 assists. Onyeka Okongwu chipped in with 21 points and 9 rebounds, along with a pair of steals and 3 blocks. Washington was led by C.J. McCollum's 28 points. The Wizards got good production from their youngsters off the bench, and Tristan Vucevic and 18 points and 5 rebounds, and Will Riley had a career-high 15 points. The Hawks came out in that, scored 70 in that first half. As I mentioned earlier, Washington had just 55 over the first 2 quarters of play. We saw Washington, again, this is a script we've seen at different times this year, dig in the third quarter on the defensive end and really change the game a bit, and they got Atlanta to kind of play on their terms, and they were able to climb back into the game to the tune of winning the third quarter 38-28, which brought them to within 4 by the end of the third. Heading into the fourth, they were trailing 97-93. The Wizards would tie things up at 97 with 11:29 left in the game on a pair of free throws from Malachi Branham. The Hawks would respond, and what a response it was. They went on an 8-0 run over the next couple minutes, pushing their lead to 105-97 with 9:15 to go. The Wizards would get no closer than 5 the rest of the way as the Hawks took that 8-0 run, and they turned it into a 20-5 run over the next segment of the game. That would essentially end the game as it was. It was 117-102 with 5:47 left, and C.J. McCollum broke up that 20-5 run when he hit a 3. Again, it was a hell of a run made in the third quarter by Washington, but it just wasn't. They didn't have enough at the end where we saw the Hawks, who I'm sure Hawks fans are biting their nails. Like literally, they blew a 23-point lead or got walked down by the Nuggets from 20 down last night, right? So I'm sure Hawks fans were worried about this starting to look a little familiar, unfortunately for them. But the Hawks would regain their footing. Washington, again, looked like a little bit out of gas after successfully climbing out of the hole. But it took the entire third quarter and, just a minute or two into the fourth, and Atlanta had enough left for a finishing kick. And they would use that final run again. It was 20-5 to put the game away. The Hawks would respond from losing that third quarter 38-27 by winning the fourth 34-23. Some of the areas in which things got away from Washington, they got beat on the glass in this one 45-26. 15-4 specifically on the offensive glass. Now, obviously, that directly correlates into second chance points. We told you in pregame, Atlanta, one of the best teams in the league in forcing steals and generating steals. They averaged 9.5 a game coming into this one. They would end the night with 13 steals in this game. Atlanta turned it over 15 times, but they conceded just 17 points off those turnovers. Washington turned it over 20 times, conceding 26. I think the biggest difference was the massive advantage Atlanta had in the paint in terms of points in the paint. They won that 70-42. 70-42 in terms of points in the paint. Just all too familiar themes for Washington in this one. Again, way to fight out of that third quarter. You can't have that bad of a first half and successfully climb out of holes and have enough left for that final kick. They're a 3-1 team. They just a 3-win team. They don't have the luxury going down early like that, coming back in and having the requisite firepower to finish it once they erase the lead, which is why they can't afford to go down into these massive holes. It seldom does it end well again. That's why they have 3 wins. Player of the game in this one, look, is Jalen Johnson. 30 points, 12 rebounds, 12 assists. X Factor, that one had a couple folks. Still hadn't made up my mind by the time we hit live here. I'm gonna say Luke Kennard, just off the bench, thought he had a really efficient game. 15 points, 23 minutes, 6 or 7 from the floor, 3 or 4 from deep, along with 2 steals. He wasn't the only one that gave good production off their bench. I thought Asa Newell gave them good minutes too, 11 points in 12 minutes. But I'm going to go with Kennard, just very effective, extremely efficient. Part of that 6 for 7 was going 3 or 4 from deep. So for Atlanta, they were able to get off of their 3-game, snap their 3-game slide with the win over Washington. For the Wizards, they still remain at 3 wins. They have a few nights off in terms of no games. And then they are next up at home. They will be hosting the Cleveland Cavaliers on Friday, December 12th. So we will see you guys then.